Something unusual is happening beneath the Mississippi River. Satellites and sensors now show the ground below America's greatest waterway is beginning to shift in ways no one expected.
The climate crisis is also top of mind for many voters. The Mississippi River is at historically low levels, which could impact the food supply and our wallets.
The Mississippi River, a name that pulses through the American imagination, rippling with stories of exploration, commerce, and long restless movement. From its marshy source in Minnesota to its broad delta, dissolving into the Gulf of Mexico, the river seems etched in permanence, an unbroken current echoing through centuries of history. Farmers rise before dawn to greet it. Cities mark their years by its floods and lulls, and wild creatures follow its seasonal rhythms as if by ancient decree. Yet beneath these patterns, under silt-laden water bordered by cranes and cypress, another story has begun to unfold, one less tranquil and far more unsettling. Not long ago, satellites peering from orbit began whispering hints of strangeness. Conservationists studying the river announced that something was wrong, and geologists, poring over maps and seismic traces, issued warnings with words rarely spoken aloud. Fractures, cracks, movements profound enough to earn the label Red Alert. In conference rooms and research stations, experts gathered, confronted with troubling data, deep, spreading rifts undermining parts of the Mississippi, quietly rewriting the way the land and water fit together. What forces have disturbed the ancient riverbed, and what consequences might wait if the Mississippi truly defies expectation? If the river's bed can rupture, what other certainties may soon fracture as well? Today we stand at the edge of revelations both mesmerizing and worrisome, as we trace the cracks stitched beneath America's greatest river, seeking answers in mud, stone, and restless water. Where did these changes begin? And how close might we be to a transformation deep enough to alter the nation itself? Chapter 1. Mississippi River Cracks Exposed. For generations, the Mississippi has played the paradoxical role of both destroyer and creator, washing away one shore only to build another, devouring towns with seasonal floodwaters even as it fertilizes fields hundreds of miles away. To most, the river feels eternal, a force so massive and self-contained that the idea of rupture, of any sudden unnatural change, borders on the unthinkable. Yet recently, that sense of eternal stability is being called into question. Newly released InSAR satellite images, pulled from orbiting eyes and low-altitude surveys, have surprised scientists by revealing cracks accumulating beneath the riverbed. These are not routine fissures that develop as muddy banks erode after storms or droughts. Instead, the fractures visible from above stretch for considerable distances, slashing through the heart of America's landscape with clarity only modern technology can provide. Below the surface, some engineers and river workers have reported oddities. In certain river stretches, the bottom appears to have changed, with sand and gravel shifting in unusual patterns. River pilots, accustomed to reading the subtle signs in the current, note unexpected eddies, strong lateral currents, and in rare instances, floating debris caught in watery whirlpools. While such features can occur naturally, their frequency and location have been sufficiently anomalous to warrant new concern. What is driving these cracks at the bottom of the Mississippi? Seismic measurements, once primarily used to track navigation hazards, now map subtle changes in the riverbed's composition. Overlays of these readings with satellite data depict a network of fractures widening gradually, inch by inch, like scars deepening over time. The consequences of these cracks could extend far beyond the water. The Mississippi River is a boundary between regions, between ecosystems, between histories. Now, with fractures appearing in its literal foundation, the ground beneath this vital waterway faces uncertainty. If the river's body can split, can its identity as the backbone of American life remain secure? Beneath the current's shimmer lies a question. Is the Mississippi responding to forces long at work, or is a new phase, one of physical vulnerability and rapid change, taking shape? When a river's very bed shifts, what happens to everything anchored to its course? Chapter 2. Deep Mississippi riverbed fractures revealed. Long before murky water flowed through the Mississippi Valley, ancient tectonic forces wrote secret histories deep beneath. Dormant faults, some predating the river itself, twist and angle beneath the delta, their traces hidden among layers of glacial drift and alluvial sediment. Generations have settled here, largely oblivious to the invisible boundaries running below. In recent decades, geologists have tracked small but consistent ground movements beneath the Mississippi's broad flow, well before the recent discovery of riverbed cracks. Minor tremors, undetectable to most, but clear on sensitive instruments, have suggested that old tectonic scars persist in motion, subtly rearranging the landscape. Historically, these shifts were seen as the normal settling of sediments, not the harbinger of significant upheaval. But the emergence of these new fractures presents an uncomfortable possibility. Could ancient faults, like those that define the New Madrid seismic zone or other regional boundaries, be sending signs of renewed activity? Researchers are examining decades of seismic data, searching for links between long-buried geological features and current surface changes. At least one known fault, buried deep beneath the river's path, shows hints of activity in satellite imagery. Though too deep to spark surface-breaking earthquakes, these old lines can quietly nudge sediment layers or influence the alignment of the river channel itself. For towns, farms, and industries along the river, even small ground shifts could spell trouble, potentially undermining bridges, levees, and pipelines designed with stable ground in mind. What happens if these old wounds open further? For hundreds of miles, critical infrastructure, bridges, levees, pipelines, and rail lines spans the river, relying on the presumed stability of the bedrock. Even small adjustments in the underlying faults could threaten to disrupt navigation, agriculture, and commerce, reminding us that the landscape's apparent stillness is always provisional. It is one thing for a fault to twitch beneath a field or forest. It is another for it to ripple beneath a waterway that binds a continent. What signs remain hidden among these fractures, and how long can communities rely on the ground beneath their feet? Chapter 3. Mississippi River Ancient Faults Reactivating. To clarify the extent of the Mississippi's vulnerabilities, scientists are deploying every available technology. Up and down the river, a shifting network of research boats, drones, sensors, and satellites now form an unprecedented surveillance system for America's mightiest waterway. Their objective? To turn worries into facts, and to gather enough clarity to guide action. Central to this is InSAR, Interferometric Synthetic Aperture Radar. These space-based radar readings, bouncing signals off the river's surface and banks, reveal patterns that the naked eye cannot see. When interpreted by experts, these satellite images depict a riverbed increasingly marked by fractures, less a uniform artery, and more a patchwork of sudden, silent shifts. Closer to the water, ground-based instruments add another layer of urgency. Sensors embedded in the riverbed, once mainly tasked with monitoring erosion and silting, now capture subtle increases in subsurface movements. It's as though the river bottom is unsettled, never quite returning to its usual rhythm. Decades of data, when compared, reveal a disturbing arc. Changes that once unfolded over centuries may now be accelerating. Adding to this, climatologists note that the river's winter freeze has dramatically changed over the past 30 years. Where thick ice used to silence the river for weeks or months, the pattern now shows thinner coverage, melting earlier and lasting for shorter periods. While not directly related to cracking in the riverbed, the retreating ice may reflect broader system changes, variations in temperature or hydrology that alter pressures throughout the river's structure, with ripple effects for stability. Perhaps the most telling warning comes from the river's ecosystem. Biologists monitoring the river's health report shifts in fish spawning, changes in migratory bird routes, and altered shellfish populations. While many factors influence these changes, the biological signs align with the message sent from the geophysical data. The system is in flux, and its living inhabitants sense the difference. From data and observation comes a sobering conclusion. The cracks are real, and the Mississippi's old routine has been interrupted, at least for now. Advanced technology gives us a clearer view, but some secrets, some patterns of change, may elude prediction. Will scientists connect the final pieces before a tipping point is reached, or does the river conceal its answers beyond even our best instruments?
Chapter 4. Mississippi River InSAR Warning Signals. If the Mississippi is a backbone of American commerce and settlement, then the infrastructure crossing it, bridges, levees, and pipelines, are its lifelines. Generations have built along the river with the implicit trust that while surface floods may come and go, the ground beneath would hold. Today, that trust is being put to the test. Nowhere is the risk clearer than in the long stretches of levees, those engineered embankments that guard cities and farmland against seasonal floods. In spots where satellite data highlights cracks beneath the river, engineers have reported increased seepage, groundwater welling up in places once thought solid, mud breaking through reinforced banks, and microfractures appearing in levee pilings. While these structures are monitored and maintained, any deep instability below could challenge even the best defenses. Bridges add another layer of challenge and concern. Whether carrying road, rail, or pipeline traffic, these spans rely on stable ground to support immense weight. If shifting sediment or subtle ground movements affect critical piers, even by a few inches, the consequences could be immediate and costly. Recent precautions have included increased monitoring and, in some cases, rerouting the heaviest barge traffic to avoid vulnerable areas until more is known. Buried infrastructure, such as oil, gas, and water pipelines, also faces vulnerabilities. These networks are seldom designed for the kind of ground movement sudden fractures might cause. Engineers have begun inspecting key river crossings for any sign of shifting or strain, recognizing that a leak or rupture could compound environmental and economic risks. Beyond these direct threats, the larger worry is systemic failure. If a segment of the riverbed gave way enough to change the Mississippi's course even modestly, entire port facilities or industrial corridors could face disruption. The river has certainly shifted before, but such an event in today's infrastructure-dependent world could echo far beyond the immediate banks, with thousands of jobs and billions in commerce at risk. What these warnings make clear is that all the infrastructure along the river depends, ultimately, on geology, on Earth that, as the cracks suggest, may not be as firm as it once seemed. If the foundation of the river's course is in question, so too is the future of the communities, economies, and networks built upon it. Chapter 5. Mississippi River Infrastructure at Risk. The Mississippi has always been a river in motion. Its bends, cutoffs, and floodplains are the product of relentless change, with history marked by times of calm and turbulence alike. In centuries past, floods have shifted its path and reshaped the land, leaving ghost towns and new islands in their wake. Yet, rarely has the drama occurred deep beneath the water, in the shifting of the very bedrock that underpins the river's journey. Historians recall episodes when farmers or riverboat pilots awoke to radical transformation. A sandbar erased, a new channel cleaved through cropland, a town overtaken by the shifting line of the flood. These stories, dramatic though they are, have largely been events of the visible surface and floodplain, responses to rain, snowmelt, or drought. Today's concern is different. It is rooted in a steady accumulation of evidence. Decades of climate records showing shrinking winter ice, satellite photos revealing new ground movements, river engineers flagging structural anxieties, and conservationists naming the Mississippi America's most endangered river of 2025. This label of most endangered was issued not only for pollution, invasive species, and degraded habitat, but now also for the geophysical shifts that underlie these surface threats. The feeling is one of layers of instability, ecological, climatic, and now geological, stacking up in ways rarely seen before. Each anomaly, a faint tremor, a cracked levee, a sudden deviation in barge channels, echoes broader patterns. Warming winters reduce the ice's ability to lock in the river's dynamics, exposing it to more frequent variability and erosion. Low flows in summer and extreme events in spring and fall upend the natural rhythm, accelerating changes that might once have taken centuries. Despite mounting data, understanding and preparedness lag behind. River towns take pride in their resilience and history with the water, yet many now find their planning stretched thin. Emergency managers and engineers race to build contingency plans. But the sheer scale and unpredictability of deep-seated change renders many efforts provisional at best. If a critical segment of the riverbed were to shift quickly, few would be fully ready for the disruption that could follow. In these moments, the Mississippi continues as it always has, flowing on, sometimes gentle and sometimes wild, its changes subtle or sudden. It splits, scars and shifts, deepen quietly, challenging the certainty of those who have lived by its side for generations. The question hangs in the air. Is this the Mississippi's latest reckoning? And if so, can any action, technological, political or communal, forestall a transformation driven from below? Chapter 6. Mississippi River Course Shift Threat. What renders the current moment so unsettling is not only the science, the evidence of cracks and movement, the data showing decades of climatic change, but also the uncertainty at the heart of the river's story. The Mississippi has shifted course, flooded banks, and created new lands many times through natural history, but the character of the present seems unique. Fractures opening not at the surface, but deep beneath, and at a pace and scale that catch even seasoned geologists off guard. Those who study rocks, river sediments and seismic readings find themselves repeating one word more often: unprecedented. While natural river shifts have been recorded for generations, this blend of factors, tectonic subtlety, rapid technological observation, altered climate patterns, and heavy human use, defies easy comparison. The fractures now observed do not fit neatly within cycles or patterns of the past. Their implications remain ambiguous. Some draw strength from the river's history of transformation and recovery, old channels marked by stunted trees, cities rebuilt atop flood scars, and wetlands regrown after disaster. Others warn that the convergence of developments, fracturing ground, changing climate, and advancing human impact may create challenges of a modern scale and pace, for which old analogies offer little guidance. For those who live along the river, formal science is felt and interpreted through daily experience. The mood of the river at sunrise, the groan of winter ice, the creak of a levee pressed by floodwater, and the calls of wildlife that attend each seasonal change. Some days, the river seems unchanged. On others, a subtle unease lingers, as if the air itself is waiting. Ultimately, the river's own depths harbor the answers, beneath layers of silt, current, and memory. Every crack, every sign of change is simultaneously a warning and a question. How long until what lies beneath surfaces in ways that can no longer be managed or ignored? Where will the next fracture emerge? And what will it cost in land, livelihoods, and the stories bound up in the river's current? Chapter 7. Mississippi River Future Uncertainty. Great rivers are more than highways or engines of trade. They are living chronicles, their histories pressed down layer by layer. As the Mississippi's bones reveal new faults, its people and guardians enter a time of watchfulness, listening for meaning amid the shifting silt. Each day, the fractures extend, silent but insistent, reminding us that, in the end, the river and the land remain beyond final prediction. Will the Mississippi rewrite its course, altering assumptions that have shaped a nation for centuries? Or will the river settle, with the threat fading quietly away, a lesson learned, a wound remembered? For now, the only certainty is uncertainty, that everything is shifting, and the fate of America's greatest river, and all who depend on it, is being written under the ceaseless flow. Which revelation keeps you awake at night? The thought of ancient forces stirring beneath our feet, or the realization that we may only notice once it is too late? What other secrets might the Mississippi's dark current still be whispering, just beyond our senses? Share your thoughts below, and as we gaze into the mysteries beneath the surface, remember that this story is still unfolding. Thank you for joining us, as we search the shifting riverbed for signs, warnings, and the next chapter in the ongoing saga of the Mississippi. There will always be more mysteries waiting, beneath water, beneath stone, beneath the familiar names that tie us to this ancient river.